Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Shook Sports Take podcast. Hope you are all doing well. I did a run of videos, episodes earlier in the NBA season doing the early predictions for each and every team, and I told you that I would update not only the predictions but my opinions on the team come the All-Star break. And well, here we are at the All-Star break, through the trade deadline, and we're going to have a much clearer picture of what each team looks like. And today we're going to start just as we did the early predictions with the Atlantic Division. So that's the Boston Celtics, the Brooklyn Nets, the New York Knicks, the 76ers, and the Toronto Raptors. Let's start right into it with the Boston Celtics. About the way the Boston Celtics have bounced back without Jason Tatum. They sit at 33 and 19, 35 and 19, excuse me. They just look wildly impressive. A lot of that is thanks to Jaylen Brown, who is averaging 29 and a half, so virtually 30 points a night. He's taken that step. A lot of people said that without Jason Tatum, that this Celtic team will crumble. I think I myself said that I thought this team would probably fall between the 5 and the 6 seed in the playoffs, and that doesn't look to be the case at all. They're currently in second in the East. Don't really look like slipping down from there at all, really. And a lot of that is because Jaylen Brown has really stepped up his play. Now, a lot of the real criticism comes when the biggest moments come. Can Jaylen Brown lead a team? Where that'll still be yet to be seen. But he's playing at a very high level, an all NBA level, first team All NBA level, for sure. And I've been really impressed with him. Now, you look at Derek White and Peyton Pritchard, two guys that had really slow starts to the beginning of the year. Neither of them are, they're still shooting 32 to 35% from three, but it's getting a lot better. White's having bigger nights. Peyton Pritchard's being more consistent. And then they added Nikola Vucevic at the deadline, which I think helps space the floor. It gives them a different look and a big man to Keita, who Keita's played well. But I think that was a good move as well. Offload Anthony Simons, who was never really going to fit with this team anyway. So it was good to move off him and get something out of it. And then you have guys stepping up all over the place. Sam Hauser, Jordan Walsh, Baylor Shireman. He's been great. He had a great game. The last few runs a game, he's averaging 10 to 12 points. He had 13 boards against the Knicks, which was just 2 games ago. This Celtic team feels like if Jason Tatum gets healthy, they give the Pistons a run for their money. I think the Pistons are out and out the favorite in the East. That is not something I would have said at the start of the year. I believe I said it was going to be either Cleveland or New York. But that Pistons team, the way they play defense, I should save that for the episode on the Pistons. But the defense that they play, and I think they are an out and out favorite in the East. But a healthy Celtics with Jason Tatum, I think there's a different conversation because Jason Tatum is just that integral piece to pulling this whole thing together. But yeah, a lot of credit to the way that Jaylen Brown has played. He's really stepped it up, and the Celtics. It really a lot of it comes down to Joe Mazzulla's coaching. Because he is a fantastic head coach, and he has the ability to whatever the players he has a system for it. It's not one of these I'm going to plug the guys I have into the system I know works. That system constantly adapts to the personnel that he has available to him. And so that's why it doesn't ever feel like it matters what the Celtics depth looks like, because they always have that strong starting five. But what the Celtics depth looks like, they always are getting the best out of their bench, and that's a lot of credit to Joe Mazzulla. But yeah, them stepping up, the guys like Peyton Pritchard and Derek White stepping up and playing at a more consistent level has led to a lot of success for the Boston Celtics down this stretch. I do see them finishing second or third. Cleveland looks strong, so maybe I don't see them falling to fourth, but they're going to be somewhere in the favorites out of the East. But I just don't know if I see a trip to the conference finals, or I certainly don't know if I see a trip to the finals, especially if Jason Tatum's not healthy. If Jason Tatum is back, that would depend on what he looks like. I'm not sure if he can make it back in time. We're talking about a torn Achilles. Something that I don't think is very likely that we see him, and if we do, limited minutes throughout the entirety of the playoffs, because you don't want to make it worse and then have to do this whole thing without him all over again next year. So I would say that probably the second round, maybe the conference finals for the Boston Celtics is where I see them topping out at. Take us to the Brooklyn Nets, who are 13th in the Eastern Conference at 15-38, and it is certainly ugly. I'll start with the only bright spot, which is Michael Porter Jr. averaging 25 points a night. Um, he just goes out there and takes every shot that he feels like taking, right? I mean, he's Michael Porter Jr. is in dreamland at the moment. There's no pressure to win games, and he can just go out there and score. I don't think he'll be all Brooklyn net come next season, um, but that's the only really positive thing that I have to say about the Brooklyn Nets. Noah Clowney and Nick Claxton are fine. They're serviceable. I think Day'Ron Sharp and Egor Damine, I think is how you pronounce his name. Um, they are young talents that could develop. Demeen shows multiple flashes. He had a 26-point game not that long ago. He's showing flashes of being a valuable piece to a franchise. But other than that, man, I just don't see a lot of hope for this Nets team. Now, obviously, you have to give guys times to develop. There's a lot of NBA players that do not start hitting strides to that third and fourth season. But I will say that it's not looking great. They have a lot of picks again, I think, in the next 2 years. But they let go of Cam Thomas, and I can't say I necessarily blame them because Cam Thomas evidently didn't want to be there. There was multiple clips going around. There's that one where he's just standing at the logo in a late shot clock situation and then swings the ball the second he gets it because he doesn't want to have to hurt his stats, and they pulled him right away. I think there might have been some stuff going on behind that we aren't fully aware of, but Cam Thomas clearly did not want to be there. He already looks so much happier in Milwaukee. But I just don't see this team having a lot of hope, to be honest with you. It's going to come down to a total rebuild. They're going to get more picks from trading away Michael Porter Jr. They still have a lot of picks from the Mikal Bridges deal. And I think they have one from the Cam Johnson deal because I think it was a pick in Cam Johnson or a pick in Michael Porter Jr. for Cam Johnson. I could be wrong, but I think that they certainly need to focus on just getting the talent there and developing players at the best that they can do. Brooklyn don't have a great history of developing talent, to be quite honest with you, but we're going to see what happens. This is a team that's going to be bad for the next 2 or 3 years, and we're going to have to trust and just sit and wait and see what happens with the guys, the young core that they have coming through. Maybe the lottery falls their way a couple of times, who knows? But I do think that they're obviously not going to make the play-in, and this Brooklyn team is going to be bad, probably bad again next year, but it's about setting up the keystone pieces, the cornerstones of your franchise, and letting that build up. Would bring us to the New York Knicks, who obviously had great success at the start of the season, or that first third of the season, winning the NBA Cup before, just like every other team that's won the Cup, slumped heavily, gone 2-11 down that next stretch. But then they bounced back a little bit. They went on an 8-game win streak, and then got manhandled by the Detroit Pistons again for the second time this season. Both games against the Pistons, they've lost by 30, which is quite concerning if you are Mike Brown. But then again, you look at it, they were swept by Boston and by Cleveland, and they lost their game to OKC. They struggled against the top teams last season and then beat Boston in 6 games. So, take it with a grain of salt. The regular season is not the postseason, but when it comes to the postseason, I still see the Knicks as this exact same team that we saw last year, that being you're going to struggle in the postseason when you have to have both both Towns and Brunson on the floor, because defensively, teams are going to make you pick your poison, and neither of them are going to be successful. They're going to put Towns and Brunson in the pick and roll like the Pacers did throughout that entire series, and it's not going to bode well for the Knicks. Towns is just not a very good defender. He's consistently in foul trouble, and even when he isn't in foul trouble, he doesn't really do all that much defensively. And then Brunson, for his size, is a good defender, but the issue is that it's for his size, and that size plays a massive factor in his ability to be a good defender in the NBA. So with those two on the floor, teams are going to have an advantage on that side of the ball, and you just have to come down to outscoring them, which has worked for the Knicks before. Brunson goes for 27. Towns has not played particularly well on the offensive side. He's shooting better, but he shot really poorly to start the season, specifically from behind the line. But he's gotten more aggressive. He's getting downhill more. He's starting games by scoring in the paint, allowing him to build into a rhythm, which has helped. Mikal Bridges has been great, scoring the ball recently, but he went through that stretch where they were in the slump. He was not playing well on offense at all. But we always know what Mikal Bridges is going to bring on the defensive side of the ball, and that is always a key factor, as well as OG Anunoby, who is a phenomenal defender and has shot really well. Again, other than the slump that the Knicks found themselves in, but OG Anunoby is at no concern on offense. And then you got guys like Josh Hart, like Miles Robinson, like Deuce McBride, Landry Shamet, all playing their role. I'm interested to see how Jeremy Shohan comes into this team because they need another four after trading Gershon Yabusele. And then of course they flipped what they got from that deal for Jose Alvarado, who looked really good. He went for 26 against the 76ers, which was an impressive performance out of him. But I just can't help but feel the depth is great, but when it comes to the postseason, you're only running an 8-man rotation. Really, maybe a 9. I don't. You won't see a lot of teams run more than that. And when it comes to it, I don't think the Knicks are going to have the ability to stop teams from just scoring the ball almost every possession. We've seen them play good stretches of defense. That 8-game run, 8-game win streak, they had held just about every opponent but one under 100 points. They only gave up 66 to the Nets, but again, we already talked about the Nets. That's not really that big of an accomplishment. However, I don't know. When you see good teams, you watch the way the Pistons play them. I don't think the Knicks might take a game off the Pistons, but I don't think that series goes longer than 5 games. I don't know if they're going to have a whole lot of success against Boston, even though they've beaten them a couple of times. I think they're actually 3-1 against the Boston Celtics in the regular season, but they seem to struggle to stop Jaylen Brown consistently, and then I just don't know. I don't know. When they've played the Sixers with Joel Embiid, they have not played well against the 76ers. So there's a lot of teams in the East that I think give the Knicks problems because they're going to take advantage of Towns and Brunson being on the floor at the same time. That's the biggest takeaway with this Knicks team, is that if they can figure out a way to play good defense with those two on the floor, they are going to be very seriously dangerous. But if that problem continues and they continue to struggle defensively with them on the floor and Towns can't get going on offense, meaning he's holding you back on both sides of the floor, I think this Knicks team is maybe the second round at best. To the Philadelphia 76ers, who I'm still not quite set on. I think they're probably going to end up in that 6th seed, just at the bottom edge of the playoffs. Tyrese Maxey is still continuing to play at an extremely impressive level, 28-6 on the season, and he's a great defender. His active hands, his speed makes him a problem at all times in transition. Tyrese Maxey is just really, really good, and you combine that with the fact that Joel Embiid is starting to look healthy. He's averaging 26-7. He looks. He's starting to impact the game on the defensive end too, because the athleticism is starting to come back to him a little bit. So they're going to continue to manage his minutes probably, which is absolutely the right thing to do. But he looks good, and that is a huge plus for them. You combine that with, again, the way that VJ Edgecombe has played has been wildly impressive. I think he's slipped out. He's not going to end up winning Rookie of the Year, but he's definitely been in the race. He'll probably fall short to Cooper Flagg and Con Kneppel, but he's done a great job. Really, the way that VJ Edgecombe is fearless in the big moments. We've seen him make multiple game-sealing or game-winning shots already, and the fact that they don't have to force the ball into Maxey's hands in those situations is great, and it will be great come the postseason. But where I get confused with this 76er team is the depth. Now, obviously, Paul George is now suspended. There's nothing they can do about that. That happened. We'll just move on from that. You got to look at Quentin Grimes, who hasn't really hit the ground running at any point this season. He hasn't really gotten going in the way that we saw him play multiple times last year. Kelly Oubre is not playing at the same level that we saw him play last year, although both of those guys can show big games in different moments. But then you look, I mean, Andre Drummond continues to be a serviceable center. You have Adembona and Barlow both being impactful. Um, but where it comes to is that I just, in non-Embiid minutes, in non-Maxi minutes, this game, like if you watch the way they got played by the Knicks ran through them in those minutes that obviously Embiid didn't play at all, and then when Maxey went to the bench, that game was not close, and those are the minutes where I just don't see the Sixers having success. Um, Teams are going to grow leads and take over games in the minutes that those two are sitting, and I don't know how that they're going to combat that. They don't have a natural scorer off the bench when Grimes is not playing well, when Kelly Oubre is not playing well. And of course, if those guys just start playing well, then that changes the complexion of the entire scenario. But um, yeah, I think this team could be in the second round, depending on the matchup they get. If it's Cleveland, I don't like that at all. If it were to be New York, they could cause some issues there. Um, and then say they end up in the play and they win that first game, it could end up being Boston, which isn't fun at all. But with Embiid and Maxey, they're going to have chances to win big games, and I think those two can get it done. It's just a matter of are they going to be put in a position to be able to do so when they're not on the court. And the other thing that I am just completely lost about when it comes to the Sixers is why you would trade Jared McCain specifically to the Thunder. Um, I wasn't really a fan of them moving him anyway. I know that he wasn't getting the minutes, but there was always enough talent there, right? If you just had to give him a chance to come back from that injury, it was a nasty injury. Torn ACL is a big deal in the NBA. And so you were going to have to give him time. Maybe he wouldn't have helped you this year, but by next year, you were going to have that first year Jared McCain back, most likely. So to move him was strange, but specifically to the Thunder, I mean, that should have told you. When Sam Presti calls about your young player, probably keep that player because he very rarely misses with decisions like this. And I mean, I don't even know how he's going to fit into their rotation with all the young guards they have. But we'll get to that when we get to the Thunder in the Western Conference. But I just didn't really understand the decision to do it. Honestly, I think they might have been better off trading a guy like Quentin Grimes, who probably might have had less value, but in the long run, that would have benefited you more. So, I wasn't a fan of the decision to trade Jared McCain. However, it's done now. The Sixers have done it, moved on, and I do think that this team will certainly be in the playoffs. It's just a matter of how far, and I think they could be the second round. I don't see them getting past that point, but given a draw and an upset, maybe they would top out. I'd still say at the second round, but Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid can take this team with the surrounding pieces playing well into an actual playoff run. With the Toronto Raptors, who sit fifth in the Eastern Conference at 32-23, and this team has been pretty impressive. I said that they would probably be borderline playoffs, high seed play-in, and they look pretty comfortably the full level above that. You got guys like Scotty Barnes, 19, 8, and 6. Brandon Ingram's got 21 and 5 a night. Both of those guys are all-stars. Emmanuel Quickly averaging 17 and 6. RJ Barrett's averaging 18 and a half. Those guys all scoring at such a high volume. Quickly starting to shoot the three better as he continues to run the offense. Scotty Barnes being very good on both sides of the ball. And honestly, when Brandon Ingram has taken the court every night, there's a lot of times he just looks unstoppable. He's got this. There's a reason that they say that this was supposed to be the next Kevin Durant. The way he plays the game of basketball, that mid range is almost unguardable, if it is at all. It's so pure. He just leans back because he's got the length. He's got the long arms. He's taller than most guys that are guarding him. He's just so clean and pure with the way that he gets to his spots. It's very difficult to stop Brandon Ingram. Now, I'm not saying he is Kevin Durant, but that comparison goes around all the time with the two of them because of the body type and the way they play the game. And Brandon Ingram's been very impressive. That's why he ended up earning that reserve All-Star spot. And then, yeah, Scotty Barnes playing at an all-star level as well. You mix that with guys like Jamal Sheed and Sandro Mamukashvili. Think I said that right. I don't remember. But those guys are being solid pieces as well. You've a little bit underwhelmed by the way that Jakob Podol's played this season, considering how awesome he was last year. But I thought that the numbers were always going to drop when these guys got healthy. You missed Scotty almost all of last year. Brandon Ingram didn't play. And you were missing a lot of Quickly and RJ as well. So it was kind of like he was the number one option because he had to be the number one option, and I figured the numbers would drop. I didn't think the rate of his play would drop as much. I've also been really upset with the way that Grady Dick has not continued to be a key part to this bench. He's not even really getting as many minutes as I would have expected. He's only looking at 16 a night. He had spells last year where I was like, this guy could be really good. And it just hasn't played out that way at all. I did like the move for Trace Jackson Davis. I think adding him for some solid center depth is good as well. Challenge Podol. But also he was underused with the Warriors, I feel. I feel like the Warriors have underused a lot of their younger players, but Trace Jackson Davis, when he was given chances with the Warriors, I thought played at a pretty high level. He's not the best defender, but he can facilitate the offense from the center position at times, and he spaces the floor well, and he's a good rebounder as well. So I really liked Trace Jackson Davis, and I thought that was a good piece to add right at the deadline. This Raptor team overall, probably first round exits. Maybe they get a nice draw. I don't know at the 5. Maybe they'd be looking at Cleveland. I don't think they could beat Cleveland, who look a lot better with the move of James Harden, which is something that that's a whole different video. Yeah, I don't know if they would be able to compete with Cleveland, but the Toronto Raptors have surprised me. They've been better than I thought, but they are still probably not going to make a real run in the playoffs here. I just don't know if they play defense well enough. They have all of these scores, but none of them are elite defenders outside of Barnes. Scotty Barnes is probably going to be another All-Pro an All-NBA defender again this season. Whether that's first team or second team, I'm not sure. But I don't know. I think they lack a little bit on the defensive side of the ball, and that will hold them back. And if one of them, or two of the three of them, the elite scorer. I mean, I guess it's 4 now because Emmanuel Quickley's played so well. But if some of them have cold stretches or bad nights, that's going to be very costly. And I don't like their odds of beating any of the 4 teams above them in the East. But I do think this will be a successful season for the Toronto Raptors. We stop with the Atlantic Division. Let me know if there's anything that you do not agree with. Tell me why, and maybe I missed something. I'm not perfect. But that is where we end this first one. The next will be one of the 2 Eastern Conference divisions. I haven't decided which yet. But that is all for this episode of the Shook Sports Take podcast. Please feel free to like and subscribe, and have a blessed day.